I now invite the President and Vice-Chancellor, Professor Margaret Gardner, to present a candidate for the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
Deputy Chancellor, the Honourable Diana Bryant is very highly regarded, and rightly so, both nationally and internationally, as an outstanding leader in the area of family law. She's worked in the legal profession as a lawyer, barrister, Queen's Counsel and judicial officer. Her Honour completed her undergraduate degree at the University of Melbourne and her Master of Laws at Monash. Following many years practising in family law in both Western Australia and Victoria, Her Honour was appointed as the inaugural Chief Federal Magistrate of the Federal Magistrates Court of Australia, which is now the Federal Circuit Court of Australia, in 2000, where her significant task was setting up and establishing an entirely new court, a task not given to many. For her role in this, she received a Centenary Medal in 2001. Her Honour was later appointed Chief Justice of the Family Court of Australia in 2004, a role she held until her retirement in 2017. She was only the second woman to head a federal court jurisdiction. During this time, one of Her Honour's greatest achievements was ensuring publication of all first instance and appellate judgments by enabling them to be anonymised and given pseudonyms so they could be accessible to the profession and the public. Internationally, Her Honour was appointed as Chair of the Working Group at the Hague Conference on Private International Law to develop a guide of good practice on the grave risk of harm exception to the Hague Child Abduction Convention, work that was completed in 2020. She was also a member of the Singapore Family Justice Court's International Advisory Group for 4 years. Her Honour has long been committed to advocating on behalf of women in the legal profession, having been a founding member of the Women Lawyers Association of Western Australia. In 2009, she was appointed Patron of Australian Women Lawyers and has been a committee member of the Australian Association of Women Judges. In 2012, she was appointed an Officer of the Order of Australia for her distinguished service to the judiciary and the advancement of women in the law. I feel that this spoken citation glosses over many of the other significant achievements of Her Honour, but it would take many more minutes to complete those, even in the spoken word. Deputy Chancellor, it gives me the greatest pleasure to present to you for admission to the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, Diana Bryant.
Thank you, Vice-Chancellor. And so, with the authority of a council, I admit you, Diana Bryant, to the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa. I now have the greatest of pleasures in inviting the Honourable Dr. Diana Bryant to deliver the graduation address, which I'm sure will be focused, stimulating and reflecting her enormous contributions over the past 3 decades to law and to the advancement of women within the legal profession. Diana.
Deputy Chancellor, the Honourable Peter Young, President and Vice-Chancellor Professor Margaret Gardner, Dean of the Faculty of Law Professor Bryant Horrigan, members of the faculty, ladies and gentlemen, and especially the new graduates. I also take this opportunity to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. For me, but more importantly for you, this day that seemed as if it would never come has finally come. Despite the wait and the inevitability of your lives having continued and time having passed, it remains important to mark your achievements on this day. Indeed, so many milestones have come and gone unheralded during the last 16 months that it's important to acknowledge those we can. Your academic achievements may not now seem so proximate, but they remain just as important to acknowledge now, perhaps more so than ever. Today is an opportunity to recapture the pride and satisfaction that comes from the hard work and sacrifices you made to achieve your academic success with the support of your families and loved ones, and to celebrate it. You stand at the early stages of your careers in a remarkable time, a time I suggest that presents many challenges, but which, as I shall suggest, also presents opportunities if you're open to them. I think we would all agree that the last 16 months have been extraordinary. And whilst I don't think this is just because of the pandemic, I don't think I can really deliver an address in 2021 without referencing the pandemic. Apart from epidemiologists who specialised in pandemics, very, very few people anywhere could have imagined, let alone anticipated, a pandemic and its effects. There are several aspects that make it so extraordinary and which have challenged us considerably, and I want to just note 6 of them. First, it's a real pandemic. We'd all previously known about SARS, Ebola, and bird flu and their capacity to become pandemics, but the fact that they were all contained and medical knowledge and processes seem to have been effective in preventing spread, I'm sure that most of us believed that new viruses would be similarly contained. Hence, the spread of COVID-19 so quickly all around the world took us all by surprise. Second, lethality. Although there have been lethal viruses, we didn't envisage the lethality of this one, particularly with the older population. Thirdly, restrictions on travel and lockdowns. The responses of governments, both internationally and domestically, closing their borders to those coming in and leaving has had significant ramifications for all of us, for travel, for families, universities, economies and the like. Our now naive belief that we could live wherever we chose and come and go when we pleased or necessity dictated has proved to be an illusion. Lockdowns where we had our basic freedoms to move outside our homes and of association curtailed for long periods would have been scoffed at had anyone suggested it 2 years ago. Indeed, it's raised fundamental questions about the legality of some measures and civil liberties in our society more generally. Fourthly, cracks in our federation. When discussing the differences between politics in the United States and Australia, who share a remarkably similar constitution, I would often point to the cooperative nature of our federalism and the leeway allowed to the federal government compared to the regular schisms in the United States. That can no longer be said. Our state governments have asserted rights in a manner not seen during my lifetime at least. Of course, for those of you who wish to be constitutional lawyers, this is a golden opportunity as we navigate arrangements for the future and explore the outer limits of executive power. Fifthly, medical science. The development of a number of effective vaccines in such a short space of time is a testament to where we all hoped our medical science would be. This is very comforting. And finally, the benefits of our experience of the pandemic. Most things in life, whether they be decisions we make or actions we choose or that happen to us, come with advantages and disadvantages. It's worth remembering that almost everything that happens carries with it some advantages. Frequently we don't see them, particularly if the event is painful or distressing and we're overwhelmed by our emotions at the time. But if we look, they are to be found. Countless books have been written about this. I had somewhat of a reputation for seeing the good side of things. Perhaps too much, it was suggested, and I was on one occasion labelled by Annabel Crabb at a panel discussion as Chief Justice Pollyanna. I'm happy with that label, however, and I think the ability to look for the benefits in life has stood me in good stead. So in looking for the advantages in the pandemic, there are many things we've gained from the last 16 months that will improve the way we live. The changed environment in which we now do our work, where we can live and do our work, and new and more efficient court processes are but a few. The requirement to do things differently has harnessed our ingenuity and encouraged new developments. Of course, there were many losses and hardships, but it seems to me that more than any time I can recall, significant and sensible change has occurred quickly. We also seem to have come together as a community to achieve a common good in a way perhaps not seen in recent times, and I hope that will continue. We need to continue to search for and maintain the benefits that have occurred. But it's not merely the pandemic that's challenged us over the past 16 months. Institutions we thought were sound have proved to have feet of clay. We've seen Black Lives Matter protests, which have travelled around the world and highlighted injustices and inequalities in society. The Me Too movement, characterised in Australia particularly by the Chief Justice of the High Court's response to the allegations about Justice Dyson Heydon, as he then was, and the more recent allegations about the culture and behaviour in the Parliament and the parliamentary workplace, and the trashing of practices of respectful debate and persuasion in view of an appeal to force, emotion, anger and fear, fake news, exemplified by the fallout of the recent United States presidential election and the failure by so many to accept the outcome. We have as a society, therefore, much ground to cover with these issues, and I can do no more than watch you deal with them with interest because they are now your issues to solve. I've spent a career from when I was a young lawyer trying to improve things for women. Regrettably, there's still a lot more to be done. And I was impressed with what the Governor of Victoria said recently about her role in the Me Too movement, which is similar to mine. Everything's changed, but nothing's changed enough. Thus, you've commenced your careers at a very interesting, challenging but exciting time. When there's such change and disruption, opportunities arise. I was the recipient of some opportunities like this in my career myself. I didn't set out in my early career to be a family lawyer. I certainly didn't set out to be a judge. These things happen because of chance, opportunity, and a willingness sometimes to chart a different course. I had two significant events which ultimately led me to becoming Chief Justice, quite disparate. The first was my arrival in Perth from Melbourne in 1976 and finding a newly established family court and a new act and an entirely different way of approaching family law. I just fell into it really because of the job I took. And it was an amazing time when I look back. There was no established jurisprudence and every case had the capacity to become a precedent. It was not so difficult to become an expert in that environment and it was exciting and stimulating. The second important thing that happened to me was when I decided, literally at the last moment, to apply for the job as Chief Federal Magistrate in 1999. Despite opposition from the legal profession and the Labor opposition, the government had decided to set up a new lower-level federal court, exercising family law jurisdiction and jurisdiction under some statutes shared with the federal court. I applied at the last moment because it was a somewhat risky enterprise. I had no idea whether the court would succeed or fail, what appointments would be made, and perhaps most importantly, whether I could do the job. But I suppose my Pollyanna side persuaded me it would be all right and worth the risk. Sometimes risks just need to be taken. From that position, 4 years later, I was appointed Chief Justice of the Family Court, and I can confidently say that that would not have happened had I not been Chief Federal Magistrate. So if I am to try to give you advice about your future careers and decisions you may have to make, which I can only do from my own perspective. It's to look for the advantages in every scenario. You never know what will come from them later. I've been playing golf since my retirement, and it's caused me to realise that there's a lot about golf that's very opposite about how we should strive to live our lives. 4 things strike me as being particularly useful, and I'm going to pass them on. First, it's not the bad shot you make that matters, it's what you do next. We all make mistakes. It's how you deal with those mistakes that speaks to character. Secondly, it's about your game. Generally, you have no control over how well or badly your opponent plays. It's how you play that's crucial. Your good shots as well as your mistakes are yours alone, and you cannot blame anyone else. You have to learn to face adversity and take responsibility for your mistakes in golf as you do in life. Thirdly, it's a game of honesty. It requires that when out of sight of others, for example, you don't move your ball and improve your lie. And if no one sees the air shot you did, you still count it. Personal integrity still matters, and surprisingly, people learn about your reputation. And finally, rub of the green. Luck plays a part, both good and bad, and you have to accept that. And whatever you do, it's the effort you contribute, not necessarily the outcome that matters. I've always been very impressed by the piece from Theodore Roosevelt's famous speech, now known as The Man in the Arena. He said, "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming." Time doesn't permit me to read it all, but I commend it to you, and you may be interested to know, perhaps more interested than I was, that it's tattooed on the arms of Miley Cyrus and Liam Hemsworth. I wish you all well in your careers, whatever you choose to do. Go forth and be adventurous. Treasure and respect the benefits of a degree that Monash University has given you, and thank you for the opportunity to address you on this important day.
Thank you, Diana. It's evident the time, the work in crafting a graduation address, which is not an easy address to write and to deliver because it has to be precise, contained to 10 minutes or so, and carry a message. I love the golf analogy. I've been lucky to play a few rounds with Diane. We're both members at the same Melbourne club. And what I can say is every time I've seen her tee off, the ball is straight, it's down the middle, it's never in the fairway, never in the rough, never in a bunker, and she puts all of us guys to shame for accuracy. And just on a more serious note for the graduates today, there is a world that's changed out there, and the law graduates will understand the difficulties of courts, of criminal courts particularly, of magistrates' courts, of gatherings, of juries, of how the hearings are conducted. We have learnt, and the court system is almost back and functioning, not at full throttle, but almost, and it will get there. But there have been enormous challenges which the various heads of jurisdiction have overcome, and they are to be complimented, and it is so important that justice be done and be seen to be done. And at least now we're back on track. So congratulations again on delivering that address, Diana, and on your doctorate.